We have a special live edition of Locked On UConn. Guess what? You're locked on.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn our first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you for all the YouTube support. It's amazing. I'd also love if all of my subscribers downloaded the audio version wherever you get your podcasts. It's equally as important for helping the channel and Locked On UConn audience grow. So if you can do me two quick favors. First, click that little subscribe button on the bottom of your screen. Then head over to Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Hit that button, follow the button as well. This way, you'll never miss a moment of Locked On UConn. I can't tell you how much your support means to me and to the network. It means everything. If you're tuning in from your car, once you finish the show, please drop us a 5-star review. Special shout out to my everydayers. Thanks for diving into this new UConn content and spreading the love of UConn hoops. Thanks again for all the support. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment count. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. We have a special live show today with a co-host from the Feel Good Lab. Let me get him locked in here. Where are you, Ryan?
There we go.
Ryan Gresh, welcome from the Feel Good Lab. Of course, I think you guys know him. He's a friend of the program. Has been on. I have some of his product on my desk as we speak. Oh, look at this. Yes. Ryan, thanks so much, man. What have you been up to? Tell me a little bit about, what's been going on in the offseason, your reaction to it. Men's and women's basketball teams. You worked with them in the past. I see your Cam Spencer banner in the back. I know you guys have worked with him. How's he doing? Give us an update. Talk to us.
Well, before we get into it, I know we'll talk baseball in a minute, but that game was awesome last night.
Oh yeah,
that game was great. So we'll get into that. But congrats to the baseball guys. Really, really special to be doing what they're doing in New England. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's so true.
That's going to be fun to get into. But I had to lead off with that. Some real fun stuff in the offseason. Obviously, our guy Cam, we stay really in close touch with him. I was just talking to him last week, and he's ready to rock. We were joking a little bit about the combine. I said, you had a pretty good showing, but what was it like? He's like, it was worse than AAU, one-on-one, nothing cohesive. And if you watched any of those scrimmages, it made you respect what our team was last year so much with how dialed the machine was. Because there was no machine and it was so hard to watch.
Yeah, no, I agree. I watched a little bit of it, and it does take away from like what basketball is, and it was totally about who has the ball, who can showcase their one-on-one skills. And we all know, listen, Cam better than I do, but I don't think he's going to win any one-on-one battles. It's more just about how he affects the team and everything that goes with, similar to Alex Caravan. So, yeah, that was difficult. What was his overall sense from? Does he feel like he's going to get drafted? Does he feel like he's kind of a tweener, if you will, where he's going to get more of a two-way? Like, what are your thoughts there?
He hasn't said it to me, but I'm going to go back. I probably told this story last time I was on, but like I can tell you right now, this is what he thinks. We're out to dinner preseason before the season even starts, and with Nika Mule, and I'm like, Nika, you're going to get drafted by the WNBA. She said, I want to play in Europe. I said, Cam, you're probably going to play in Europe too. And he looked at me dead in the eye and said, what are you talking about? and there were some expletives in there. And it was no disrespect to me, but he basically was saying, like, I don't even think about anything other than my goal and my dream, and that's to get drafted. So if I had to guess, Cam thinks he's going to get drafted, and I do too. I think he will get drafted. I think he's got a spot in the NBA. He's got the skill set. He's got the work ethic. He's got his pedigree with his brother doing what he's doing. And then I think we're getting, if you go to UConn and you work with this coaching staff, I think we're going to start to see a little bit of an advantage. You saw some of our guys last year outplay their draft position with Jordan Hawkins, Adama Sanogo, Andre Jackson. I think we're going to start seeing that more and more, where you get a 5 to 10 spot advantage for being under this coaching staff and your coachability, your understanding of very complex schemes. So, I think Cam's a second round draft pick, and I can't wait to watch the draft and kind of in anticipation.
No, I can't either. I'm obviously happy that Alex Karaban came back. What were your initial thoughts? Like we talked about this yesterday on the show about it was almost felt like stages of grief, stages of denial, all the things I was talking about, which is, I was like, we'll be okay without him, but it'd be sure nice to have him back. What are the lineups going to be with him? What are they going to be without him? All of that stuff. So what were your initial thoughts? And now that he's back and ready to roll?
The first thing is you never feel uncomfortable with this staff. I think, we've learned our lesson, like all trust to them. So no matter what happens, they've got our back. Now, to be like a contender, a favorite, we needed him back. It doesn't mean that we weren't going to be excellent, just like we exceeded expectations the past 2 years. But this guy could go down as one of the greatest players in a UConn jersey. You could argue with the way he led the team in minutes his freshman year. I believe he still did. It was really close, if not, to last year. I mean, if he has a great season again and we run it deep in the tournament, I think he's arguably our greatest player of all time, especially if we win it again. So having him back is unbelievable. And I think there's like a sense of relief for not just us as fans, but the whole team. This guy's been there, done that. He's one of the smartest players I've ever seen. He just knows what to do. He understands the offense, and he's probably going to be the guy that sets the tone. We really need that. Him, I'm looking at him, Diarra, Sampson, the guys that played really big roles last year. I think that they're going to come back in this year, and they're going to really keep the level and maybe even push it. I feel like the team this year took the level that they were at, pushed it another step further. I think we're going to need to do that again to keep the advantage that we have. But I had some inside info as the whole Alex thing was going. So I was like 90% sure he was coming back. Then I talked to Cam, and Cam's like, this guy's a first-round draft pick. He had his boys back 100%. I'm like, wow, after talking to Cam, I think he's gone. Then I had someone else tell me, no, I think Alex is, going to learn what he needs to learn in the process. He's back. Then I saw what he did in the combine. I'm like, he's gone. So for me, it went like back and forth, 60-40 split, like flipping each time.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I was 50-50 on his decision day. I had no idea. I mean, I think he was a first-round draft pick. I think with NIL, it makes sense to come back because he can, if he's our guy and we make a deep run, I think he's a lottery pick. And the amount of money when you combine it with NIL this year and what he's going to do with his, UConn legacy, plus his mom probably wanted him to graduate, the little bit I know about his family. So, all things adding up, I think it made a lot of sense for him to come back. But either way, it was a win-win for us.
For sure. I have a silly question to ask you. All the combine stuff, people have been going back and forth about measurements. Do you measure someone in their shoes or do you measure them in their feet when they're playing basketball? Like, think about that. Like, how silly is that? Does Alex Karaban play basketball with barefoot?
It is silly, but I'm an engineer and I used to work on airplane parts. And so we're talking like 10th and like tiny.
Yep, I understand.
You kind of got to normalize some guys wearing tall shoes. I mean, honestly, people would game the system if it came down to that, right? That half-inch matters in some of these measurables.
I get it. I laugh about it. It's like beach. It's like if it was playing beach volleyball, I'd be like, yeah, he's 6'6" because he's not wearing basketball shoes. But put on basketball shoes, you're 6'8". You gain a couple extra inches.
Is that what he measured at, by the way?
Like just under 6'7". It was like 6'6" and 7/8 or something like that. So it was like barefoot. That's what he was. Because the same thing was Steph. He was 6'5" and like a hair under 6'6".
Right.
So it's a running inside joke with a buddy of mine, and then I've said it on the show, so people are like, well, he's so much shorter than what they list him at. It's like he's not though. Like
they all are though. There's a 2-inch. Look at Kemba.
Yeah,
Kemba was like 6'3", right?
I've stood next to Kemba. He's not. But so yeah, I mean, I get it. Like if you're 6 foot and the list is 6 foot, you're probably 5'10". I just look at it as like a 2-inch reach. Like that's what makes it so impressive that Donovan was completely flat-footed 7'2". That's insane.
That's insane. Yes.
But anyway, we're not gonna. This isn't a show about measuring people barefoot or not. But I just thought that I just bring that up being silly. We're gonna talk about UConn baseball and a little bit of the partnership that the Feel Good Lab and Locked On UConn have created coming up after this. When you're hiring for small businesses, you want to find quality professionals that are right for your role. That's why I use LinkedIn Jobs. I remember searching for my latest team member when I used to have my own business. It was such a breeze with LinkedIn. They have tools to help you find the right professionals faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. It connects you with the professionals you can't find anywhere else, and even those who aren't actively searching. 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. Plus, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours on LinkedIn. I experienced it firsthand. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Check out LinkedIn Jobs today. Okay, let's bring Ryan back. Where is he? There he is. Ryan, welcome back to Locked On UConn. We got to talk about this Hook C, man, the dub from UConn baseball. There's something in the air in stores right now, man. It's like you get into postseason and it's almost like an expectation that they're going to make a run. So the UConn is advanced to the super regionals. They lost not last night's game, the game before. I stayed up for the game before. Last night, I fell asleep on the couch. I woke up. They won. I was very happy. But the thing that made me laugh is after they lost to Oklahoma the night before, it almost felt like, well, they had their chance. You know, Oklahoma's coming on short rest. They don't have like a full complement of pitchers. And here we are, a dominant performance, 7-1. You watched the whole game. What were your thoughts?
That defense is unbelievable. And Oklahoma made a lot of errors. We had one error, and it turns out it was the first of the whole tournament. And I was like, you know, I don't watch a lot of baseball, and that was the first. I was paying attention to their games, watching some highlights. That was the first game I watched. I watched it, you know, start to finish. And our team is special. You can just tell there's something going on, and they're probably the ultimate underdog. I mean, they barely snuck in. I think it was a win just making the tournament. So to be where they are, you know, it's already been a super successful tournament, a super successful season. Obviously, we're UConn. We don't rest on that. We got the national championship banner right behind me. I mean, I know that's what these guys want. So there's something special going on. I mean, the diving plays, the couple of plays by the second baseman, the shortstop, the third baseman, it was really amazing defensively. And then offensively, no slouch either. This is the number 9 team in the country. And it was a dominant performance, right? They're at home. We had no fans, maybe a couple fans. I think I actually know.
Yeah, there were some
couple that were there, but
no, like, and that's the thing is, I said it yesterday. You know, we did a short segment at the end of the show on UConn baseball about, hey, good luck to them. Really think, you know, I had said I had a sneaking suspicion that this could be the last night, but if it isn't, you know, what an incredible story it would be. And one of the things I mentioned was in an elimination game, put the ball in play. You never know what's going to happen. Like, striking out is just not an option tonight. You know what I mean? Like, because I don't know Penders is their manager's philosophy when it comes to that. You know, if he's more of a, you know, like the Major League Baseball version, which is like strikeouts or home runs. But let me tell you something. When they put the ball in play last night, and like you said, Oklahoma made a lot of errors. They made a good share of errors the night before. So UConn just wasn't able to capitalize on Monday night or on Sunday night. So I think it kind of worked to their advantage, right? You know, you put the ball in play, that you let them kind of make a few mistakes, and then you beat them. You know, you hit a couple big flies. I mean, it was two two-run home runs when I fell asleep. Yep. And then obviously they tacked on. So they obviously can do it. Well, how about this stat? And this is transfer portal stuff for baseball. The illustrious Mr. Hotballs on Twitter said, college baseball is a way different sport than football and basketball. There are D2 and D3 teams that would beat the brakes off of some D1 teams. And the talent is over 1,000% capable of playing at a super high level. This is a quote from him. The distribution is way more even on other sports, and there's late bloomers. And that's what the transfer portal has brought to UConn, because they have 7 D3 transfers playing this weekend. D3.
Unbelievable.
And people think that's kind of like weird. Like, I know plenty of guys that play D3 baseball who are incredible athletes. They just, maybe they went to a school because they like the education they got there, and they're just happen to be a really good pitcher or a good player. So I think that's also something that this team has done, which is they've scoured the transfer portal in places that other teams haven't, and they've had incredible success.
Yeah, and that pitcher last night was unbelievable. The lefty.
Mm-hmm.
That was, I mean, he probably was the MVP of the game. He was scoreless through 8, I want to say. Yep. So, I mean, it was just start to finish pretty dominant. And I think we have, who do we play next? The number 8.
Florida State.
Yep. So, you know, I'm excited. Now I'm a fan right now. I'm watching the next game for certain.
Real quick, because I know we're going to get into the partnership between the Feel Good Lab and Locked On UConn here for the future. This is some stats from the transfers this weekend. 272, 365 on base or OPS, 400 on base percentage, 9 runs scored, 2 home runs. The pitching is where they dominated. 18.2 innings pitched, an ERA of under 1.5, 1.48. Only 16 hits allowed, only 5 walks, and all against the Big 12 regular season champ and the ACC tournament champs. Very impressive. Got to give my flowers to this team. Congratulations to UConn baseball. I want to diversify this podcast a little bit more. My passion and my brain is locked on basketball, but how are we going to ignore such an amazing run, right? I'm so happy for them, and looking forward to the Super Regionals this weekend.
Let's go.
All right. So listen, we decided to partner. We thought a mutual agreement to partner from a perspective of, I want to get better from a healthy perspective. I'm wearing my ironic trophy husband shirt that my wife bought me. And so I want to, let's be honest. Like, I want to be that quote unquote trophy husband, but in a health way, right? Longevity. And you're helping me do it. So we did a food inflammation test. I have not received the results. So Ryan has the results right now. So we thought as a part of the show today, we would kind of talk about, why you would get a food inflammation test, what the point behind it is, my results, obviously for you guys listen to me every day to kind of see where I'm at, but also how it could help you, how it could help, our listeners, the audience. And also Ryan has good news about where some of this money goes in terms of helping a good cause. So Ryan, take it away.
Yeah. So I'll give you a little context, right? And, it's no different between you and why Cam and some of the other players. We'll talk about some of the current players on the team that just did the test. We don't have the results in yet. And even some of the coaching staff, right?
Cool.
We are what we eat. And the food that we consume is a huge aspect of our health. It's not the only thing. And everything we do here really comes from my dad. So small Connecticut business, family business in Vernon, Connecticut. And it's a functional medicine practice and pharmacy. And really what functional medicine is looking at everything. So it's your sleep, your relationships, but our diets are unfortunately one of the biggest things that have gotten out of control over the last 30 years. And if we look at a lot of the chronic health conditions, a lot of it comes from the food that we eat. And here's the big thing. There is no one size fits all diet. You shouldn't be on keto. You shouldn't be on carnivore. One of them may work for you, but it's not for everybody. And so the whole point of this test is for us to understand in your body how certain foods react and give you that data to make those changes, those lifestyle changes. So I'll give you an example with Cam, right? Cam came to us. We told him about the test. He said, "Are you kidding me? I have a chance to get 1% better. I am all in." And so after we give Cam the results, his turned out to be eggs were like the highest, most inflammatory food. And guess what? He had eggs every day. He looked at me and said, "This is amazing. I eat my most inflammatory food every day because think about what I'm going to feel like when I cut them out." I said, "Is that going to be a problem cutting them out?" He goes, "I don't even know what eggs are anymore." Now, for you, hopefully we make you a lot more than 1% better, right? You're not looking for 1%, hopefully 10, 20, 30%. And, we have cases of people with chronic conditions or GI, bloating, other kind of intestinal issues that feel significantly better. For me personally, it changed my life. I didn't know how sick my stomach was until I actually did my first test back in 2017. So that's a little context. So we're going to get into your results. Before I do, go ahead.
But before you get into my results, some of the audience knows this. Part of the reason why I did this with Ryan is obviously we want to get great sponsorships that we believe into the show, but also I had a stroke 3.5 years ago. I have stage 2 kidney disease. So my diet is a big reason as to why I try to stay, healthy, create longevity. I'm in a much better health than I was 3 years ago. So part of this is where could I get better? So like Cam, if it's only 1%, I'm cool with it. If it helps me, that 1% in the grand scheme of things, that helps me live an extra 5, 6, 7, 8 years because of what I'm about to hear, then I'm all in. So that's part of the reason why we're doing this. So I want you guys to be a part of that journey and hopefully help you guys figure out if this is something that you want to do for your life. Ryan?
Cool. So you got the test kit mailed to you probably about 2-3 weeks now. Basically, you have everything you need in there from the finger prick. It's a small little blood sample. So you drop a few drops of blood on the card. It hurts for a millisecond. How was the process of taking the test?
It wasn't hard. It scared my 7-year-old because when you do the prick of your finger, you do have to squeeze out the blood so it drops the way you want it.
Right.
And so that made it a little bit of a bloody mess, to be honest with you. But as long as you do it, quickly, I think you let it dry for 20 minutes or whatever. It was a few weeks back, but it was not a tough process. It's very simple and easy to do.
Yeah. So the hardest part is pricking your finger, and it takes a few minutes. You let it dry, you mail it back into the lab, and then 10 days later, they're going to send me the results. So what they do with the sample, they take your blood and they react it with a food protein. And then they measure not just if your immune system responds. So that's called a food sensitivity test. A lot of people have heard about those. Those are really beneficial. It's amazing data to know. Does your immune system respond to these foods? But that data isn't everything. We really want to take it a step further and look at inflammation, because out of control inflammation is actually one of the leading causes of chronic disease, but it's also robbing us from performance and energy. And so we want to actually see not just the inflammatory response, but the immune response combined with it. So that's basically what the lab does. And then they give us a report back. The real benefit to having both of those things we look at is, instead of giving you 45 foods that your immune system is sensitive to, a food sensitivity test, the only thing that matters here, Mark, is your compliance. So if I give you this data and you don't change anything, it may be good to know, but you're not going to get better. So 45 foods, that's going to be really hard for you to comply, right? The nice thing here is, because we're looking at that inflammatory component, for you, we're only looking at 5 foods, right?
Really?
So we're really focusing in, and you had a pretty clean test. Now, we also look at your gut barrier. So it's something called leaky gut. It's a second part of the test we'll talk about. But honestly, you had one of the cleanest test results I've ever gotten back. And it's probably due to the fact that it seems like you take your diet real seriously.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Your health is pretty dialed in. So we'll get right into it. There's 3 levels of inflammatory foods: reds, oranges, and yellows. Okay. The reds are the most severe, then the oranges, then the yellows. But everything that shows up here is something we need to pay attention to, because when your blood reacts with that food, it's triggering that inflammatory reaction. So the other thing to notice, I'm going to go through some foods here that you're going to be like, these are the healthiest foods I've ever heard of.
Oh, sure.
And that's why we run this test. Every single person we've ever tested has at least one healthy food, like healthy, that's in their body triggering inflammation. So for you, right off the bat, in your 4+, you had butternut squash and spirulina. Really? Now, spirulina is like an anti-inflammatory antioxidant. It's an algae, I believe, like super healthy. Health nuts take this thing. But in your body, when your body reacts to it, it's actually triggering inflammation. So it's doing more harm than good. Right? Do you eat any butternut squash?
I do. It's not, I mean, I wouldn't say it's something, if it's on a menu at a restaurant, I'd be like, ooh, okay, I'll do that because it's healthy. So not anymore. What's butternut squash?
Yeah. So we want to find foods here that you consume a lot. So then the next 3, you had casein. So casein is the main protein in dairy, right? Whey is another protein in dairy, as an example. So dairy. Then we had codfish and swordfish. Again, 2 other healthy foods, right? Swordfish is pretty healthy for you. So those were the 5 inflammatory foods that showed up for you. I'm hoping you consume at least some of these. I know the butternut squash at least a little bit.
Yeah, no, a fish in general, like swordfish is something that we do pretty often. I have cod in my refrigerator right now that I typically do, like just for like a healthier, cleaner meal. Like if the kids are doing, I had tacos last night, but if the kids are doing tacos and I don't want to partake in it, I'll do something like a fish like that, like a whitefish.
Yep.
Huh, okay.
And how about the dairy?
The dairy, I mean, that's butter, right? Is that pretty much any dairy, or
any dairy? So casein, we'll have to look. There may be butters that are lower in casein, because they can make some stuff like gluten-free, as an example. Like there's certain foods out there that people have gotten pretty good at making without the constituents that are actually the most negative and harmful. So there may be butter that doesn't have casein in it. We'll have to do some research together.
Yeah, I mean, I use butter. I wouldn't say on a pretty semi-regular basis, because I try to stay away from like any kind of like vegetable oil. So like we do either use olive oil or like a fresh butter for preparing food. So that makes sense. Okay.
Cool. So that's going to be the 5 foods. Now, what you're going to do is the next 8 weeks, we're going to cut them out completely. The thing with this type of reaction it's not like an immediate allergic reaction where your throat swells up right after you eat a food. It happens days later. So that inflammation, it could be hard to be like, man, I had butternut squash 3 days ago and I'm not feeling great today. You're never going to make that correlation. So we're going to cut them out completely for 8 weeks. And then any of the foods that you want to reintroduce, sometimes like for me, I had dairy, gluten, and eggs. I felt so much better after 8 weeks. I didn't really want to introduce them, but eventually I was like, I got to try some pizza. Right.
Yeah.
And my stomach told me right away, this is not good for you. I mean, I was sick for days. So your body's really good at telling you when to reintroduce a food after that 8-week break. You're going to want to pay attention. You're only going to want to make that one dietary change over a 2-week period. So let's just say it's butternut squash. Reintroduce that food for 2 weeks. You don't have to eat it every day. Have it 1 or 2 times and just pay attention how you feel. Maybe keep a diary. And if you don't have any symptoms, then you can just maybe be more cognizant, because it doesn't change the fact that it's triggering an inflammatory response in your body. But there may be no symptoms that are popping up. You know, we have instances of people that have pretty severe acne that has been pretty much cured by finding out what foods are triggering that inflammation, because acne is an inflammatory condition, or GI issues, chronic pain, stuff like that. So you'll want to pay attention as you reintroduce the foods. If you do feel a negative symptom, you know, bloating, etc., then you're going to want to cut that food out for at least the next 8 months. But most people, when they can correlate the specific food to what they feel when they reintroduce it, most people cut it out forever. And that's what we would recommend in a perfect world.
No, I mean, that's great. I'll be curious to see, like, I almost feel like when you talk about casein, like the dairy, what about cheese? Like, do you think that there's some volition to, cutting out cheese out of the diet for the 8 weeks, just to kind of see if that helps too, just kind of
definitely
more. Yeah. Okay. Just to be kind of more.
Cheese is most likely going to have casein in it. Again, we may be able to find, like, I don't know for certain, but maybe buffalo mozzarella doesn't have casein, right? There may be some cheeses we
something
can find,
specific.
And it'll be a quick Google search that you and I will do after this to figure out a couple. But you're going to want to cut casein out completely for the next 8 weeks. Again, it's only 8 weeks. So anybody, we can do anything for 8 weeks, right?
Oh,
and I'm not necessarily talking to you. I'm talking more to the audience. So now on to the gut barrier panel. This is probably the more important even part of our test we found, because unfortunately, our guts are not that healthy, particularly in the United States. Some crazy statistics. There's 10 trillion organisms in our gut. And there's 10,000 strains of good bacteria. But unfortunately, from the antibiotics, not that we take, but that's in our food already, the glyphosate that's in our food supply, all these different things, they're just killing the bacteria, the good bacteria. And so it's getting taken over by bad bacteria. And when that gets out of whack, it can cause all sorts of downstream effects. One example is most of our immune system's right in our gut. So think about when your gut is out of whack, what that can end up doing to your immune system and then other chronic conditions that could come from that. So figuring out what's going on in the gut and then healing that. To put it in perspective, I'm going to go through your results. I was red. Red is not good. Red is good because we can make an improvement, but red means there's something bad going on. I was red across the board, so bad that I had to go additional testing. And I've retested now since, and I could have told you this just by the way I feel. It was completely healed, my gut. We'll talk a little bit quickly about the protocol that I did, but for you, out of the 8 markers we look at, and I'll tell you what they are, you had 2 of them that were positive, which means we want to pay attention. So we look at 4 things. Candida, which is a yeast overgrowth. If there's too much candida in the gut, we want to pay attention to that, because again, we want things in balance. Zonulin is the protein that tells the gut when to expand and contract. So too much zonulin tells us that the gut is not doing a good job of actually properly regulating that way. Occludin, think of it like the cement between our gut lining. So if there's too much occludin, it means there's a breakdown of the gut barrier. And then LPS, which is an indication that there's something pretty severe going on in the gut. You did not have LPS, occludin, or candida. Those all tested negative for you. But for zonulin, you tested positive for both ways we measure it, which is an immune response, IgGA, and IgG with the complement protein, the same way we measure the food. So I know this is big into the weeds. The only thing that matters for you is we want to really take a look at the zonulin and see if we can improve that over the next 8 weeks. Guess what the #1 thing we recommend you do when you have any sort of indication of leaky gut? What do you think it would be?
I don't know at all. Like,
cut out the inflammatory foods.
Oh, okay.
Right. So it's the reason we run this test at the same time, because the #1 thing we can do to help heal your gut is cut out the inflammatory foods that are causing a lot of the burden. The second thing we recommend, now this is different for men and women, but for me, this actually made it a life-changing improvement for me. I started intermittent fasting because I found that my stomach was always bloated and not feeling great. So just when I stopped eating as much, I felt better. So men typically have an easier time intermittent fasting than women. It's not all men versus all women, but on the bell curve, we see that sometimes. So I'm not recommending as a blanket statement that everybody starts intermittent fasting, but just for me, it's something that really, really worked in healing my leaky gut, because I had so many sensitivities and inflammatory reactions to foods that it was just easier to not eat. And I found that I could function really, really well on one meal. I go play basketball for 3 hours having one meal a day. No problem.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think you're right, because I definitely do add intermittent fasting into my routine every once in a while. So I definitely need to get back into that.
Think about it. You're just giving your digestive tract a break. So maybe you don't intermittent fast, but like I did a 2.5 day fast last week just to kind of take a break. It was harder than I thought, because when I get to my one meal a day, I was like craving it, right? I fast all day. Typically I'm like, this will be easy. It's not that easy, but anybody can do it, for 2 days.
What do you think, to bring it back to you? I mean, the how this all started was, I saw some of your stuff. Obviously you work with Cam. Before we get into the next segment, because I know we're running a little later, what are you seeing from the basketball players, like the players that you're working with, kind of like, what's, not to give away their personal information, but like, like just kind of as a general statement, what are you seeing them having better diets, worse diets, how that's affected them once they've done it? Like, use Cameron as an example, or some folks, or Nika as another one that you've worked with.
I would say the first thing is if you're an 18 to 21-year-old kid that wants to do this, you're already doing other things, right? It's such a good signal that you're probably already pretty healthy. Nika, Cam, Terrace Reed Jr., guy was in the office last week. He's going to be a gem. What a humble, great dude. And he's just dialed. He came here because he wants to get coached. He wants to have access to things like what we're doing that's a little bit different than maybe other schools. And this guy wants to do whatever it takes to get to the NBA. So these athletes have that kind of trigger. At the same time, we've seen, now, do I take all the credit for this? No. But Cam just wrote me a note the other day, like how amazing he feels. But we don't just do this one thing with Cam. With Cam, we did a genetic test, a micronutrient test. We got him dialed. Why? Because he did this one test. He saw the amazing improvement over months. And then he came back to me and my dad and said, what else can we do? I want more. Right? Nika, she said she feels great. She cut out eggs and a couple other foods that were on there. Part of it is, I do think there's amazing improvements. If they're already really healthy, they may not feel a huge difference. But we had a CrossFit athlete we worked with a few weeks ago. I mentioned this earlier. He had severe acne. After 30 days, he sent me before and after pictures. He's taken drugs and all sorts of things to try to clear it up. For him, the one food cutting out that he was eating every day, 30 days later, it went from like a 9 out of 10 in severeness to maybe a 1 or 2 out of 10. Unbelievable, right? So these are the different things. Most of the time, you're going to see a digestive difference for the most part. You may also see a sleep and a recovery benefit, but those are harder to like really correlate unless you have something like an Oura ring that I have to track it. But you can pretty easily tell how bloated you feel, right? And how those sort of things are.
I hear you. Well, then this is more for the audience as we're going to get into the next segment. But are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting. Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day. Bring you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Well, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I got a little smarter, a little more informed with that segment. We're going to talk about how this is going to work in terms of a partnership at the beginning of the next segment, and also play a fun game with Ryan called Who Do You Want? Coming up after this. It's winner take all in the NBA and NHL. And FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. My favorite line of any YouTuber has said, don't follow Mark's bets on whenever he gives out advice. And that's true. I've been awful with my calls on the NBA. I've been picking pretty much everybody that's been losing. I've been like, oh, bet on them. So hopefully no one has followed that. Ryan, real quick, before we get into our fun last game of the last segment, talk to everyone if they want to do this. We haven't a quote. It's not official that you're a sponsor of the show. So it's official. Talk to anybody about how they can do it, and we'll get them the proper kind of codes and stuff like that. But kind of, what that'll do, because I know you have another aspect where you're giving some of the proceeds to Bleeding Blue.
Yeah. So part of our partnership with Cam, he actually became an owner in the business. Cam's a part owner in the business, and we wanted to continue to help UConn, not just him and his class, but further.
Sure.
So, we'll use the same code that we created when we did our partnership with Cam. It's Cam Spencer, one word. You get 12% off for our lucky number back there. And then 10% in addition is going to go to UConn NIL. So whether it be Bleeding Blue for Good, we have a partnership with those guys. Also, Store Central. And so, yeah, we're going to be giving money back to continue to build our relationship and keep helping, our Huskies. So the biggest thing is people that really want to take this next step, oftentimes they have questions and reach out to me. There's a chat bot on the website. You got my Twitter handle there. You can email me at ryan@thefeelgoodlab.com. I love helping people. I love talking about this stuff, especially if you're a UConn fan. So feel free to reach out if you got any questions.
Sounds good. And also, if you're not local to Connecticut, it's okay, because guess what? Your boy lives in North Carolina, and I did my test, no problem. Ryan sent it right away. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a Connecticut family business. Trust me, I want everyone from Connecticut to go to Ryan in the Feel Good Lab. But if you don't live in the state, you're a big UConn fan, you can still do this. So let's play a fun game. I've done this with Ricky Moore. I've done this with journalists that we've had on, just other fun folks that we've had on. It's a game we're calling Who Do You Want? You can pick anyone, coach or player, and you have to give me a reason why. And there's a couple different things. So the first one that I thought was fun, I've been, having played professional tennis, people have wrote me into this pickleball game. And so now I want to know, who do you want as your pickleball partner? You can pick anybody ever in existence.
Pickleball is so fun. I mean, obviously I want to pick my guy back there, but the truth is I can't pick Cam because he will annihilate me if we lose 1 point. So he's actually probably the last person I'd ever pick, to be honest. I'm going with Hashim to beat, because could you imagine this guy up at the net with a pickleball paddle and you trying to hit the ball past him?
Yeah, no, I think, why do I feel like there was another, I think Matt Edwards also said that on of the Dream Season pod. I feel like he also said Hashim, and that's so funny because we both said why we both agreed with you that you can't pick Cam because you'd be MF'd up the court, or you'd get hit with the wiffle ball 50 times because you'd be like, dude, what are you doing? But yeah, that's a good one. All right, so that's pretty solid. I like that. If you had to drive cross country, this is sponsored by the fact that I just bought a Kia, a full minivan for my troth of children and a wife. You have 4 people that you can fit in the car because, those are basketball players. You can't fit. I don't think you can fit more than 4 people in my Kia Carnival. So you're driving. You can have 1 shotgun, 3 dudes in the back. So you got 5 total people in the car. Who are your 4 companions on a ride cross country?
All right, Kemba's I got to pick Kemba. My dog's name is Kemba. This guy he just seems like a good time, right? Even if you get a flat tire, I can just picture Kemba with a big smile on his face. Man, I'm going to throw Ray in there too, but I'm not just going to go for all the NBA superstars, but would love to hear some stories from Ray, right?
Yep.
And then I'm going to take some of my lesser, AJ Price, I think is the most underrated player. Now I was there in 2009. I think if we didn't lose Jerome Dyson, maybe we've got 7 at this point, but, AJ was an absolute dog on the court. I think he's so underrated. So I'm going to give AJ some love. And then my last spot, man, I would love to pick a big like a Mecca, but I'm not sitting him in the middle seat in the back.
Third row seating though. So you got to lay in the back if you
want. Did you get the Kia Telluride back there?
No, I got the Carnival, which is even bigger. So
All right, in which case then I'm taking a Mecca.
Okay. I like that. No, yeah, that's funny because my oldest is like, oh, so when we drive to New York, I get to sit all the way in the back. I'm like, yep, that's all you. So, and he's small, so I think Emeka would fit just fine back there. That's cool, man. All right, so I know you're a golf guy. You're playing, but you have 3 other spots. Who's your foursome? And I'm going to tell you mine. I'm going to tell you mine.
Are we on the same team or playing against each other?
No, you're playing with them. Like it's not, you could, well, I mean, that's up to you. Like, what do you think?
Well, like if it's a scramble and like we're on the same team, I kind of already know who I want. So
I'll tell you what my thought process was.
Yeah.
I picked both Coach Calhoun, Coach Hurley, and I'm taking Steve Peichel because I want to hear all the coaching.
Love
just genre. Like I want to hear all that jargon. I want to hear all about the plays. And even if I could sneak Luke Murray in there or Tom Moore or Kamani, just to have like a full 4 to 8 dudes that are just all coaches, like players are, and they all played but I want that coach's perspective. And I want to also hear the smack talk that would happen in that group as well.
I love that. So I'm taking Calhoun. Calhoun plays a ton of golf. He's actually a member. He's a member at a couple of courses really close to me, Ellington Ridge, where I grew up, and then in Narragansett, Point Judith Country Club. So I'm taking Coach. He plays a ton of golf. I heard, let's just put it this way. I heard he's tough to compete against. That's all I'll say. Okay. And then I'm not taking Coach Hurley because when I met Cam and I were talking some junk about golf, and Coach Hurley comes up. He's like, we got to get this match going. I look at him like, you want to play? You play? He goes, no, I don't have time to play golf. What do you think this is? So he's not getting the invite, but Cam is, because Cam and I got a date on the books for this summer to get that infamous golf match going. And then my last pick, I got to go with Ray again because I just had a chance to meet Ray and chatted with him a bit. This guy lives and breathes golf right now.
Yeah.
He's awesome. On the golf course every day.
Didn't he have a house, or he probably still has it, like on TPC Cromwell?
Yeah, I believe he still does have it. He doesn't live there anymore. But they do come back every summer. So he plays a lot of golf there.
No, that's awesome. Okay, last one. And this is a more serious topic. Who's your security guard? Like I used, person in a foxhole. You could pick one guy, either a foxhole or essentially like your personal security. No one can touch Ryan because this player is your enforcer.
My first thought was Ed Nelson, but I'm not picking him just because he's
easy Ed.
Yeah,
easy Ed.
I think he was probably too nice of a guy. I'm taking Jeff Adrian. There's something about Jeff Adrian that was just, I mean, what was he, like 6'6"? And he played like an absolute monster.
Yep.
I'm taking Jeff Adrian as my security guard.
I'm telling you, man, that's the connective tissue of like the UConn fanship is just hysterical because depending on your age, it's either Jeff Adrian, who's been mentioned like 3 or 4 times. So you're spot on. And I used Terreno Walker from back in the day. It's one of those two. And also, who is another one that I think Sam Calhoun also said, well, he also said I would take Hashim Thabit just because he's so big. Like you couldn't even see Sam behind him.
Team, you're just gonna be able to juke right around. He's too big.
But yeah, no, that's but it's been fun asking that question and finding some Ricky Moore's answers to the golf were hysterical and the road trip, because he said I'm picking Rashad Anderson to do anything with me, and Khalid, he's like, because they were just hysterical dudes, and he said Khalid and him are so cool. So
love that.
I think that's a cool one as well. All right, well, before we go, I want to mention again, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. It's also available on Amazon Fire TV. Plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Ryan, any parting words? This is kind of a not a one-off, but we don't do a ton of live shows. I thought it would be really cool to just jump on with you quick, hear my results, let people know that we're starting a partnership, and talk a little UConn hoops, talk a little Cam, talk a little UConn baseball. Anything else you want to add before we jump off?
Here's my parting words to get us excited for this season, and this is why we have the best basketball program in the country. And it's not even close. Our practices are so much harder than our games. I was in the practice facility 2 weeks after we win. I'm sitting down with Cam for a 2-hour meeting to go over some of the test results. Because, by the way, we got Cam's test results about a month before the season ended. He's like, tell me everything. What are my genetics? What are this? I said, you think I'm telling you anything? Keep doing what you're doing. We're not changing a single thing. God forbid. Could you imagine, we changed something.
We come for you.
in his diet, and all of a sudden he's not feeling that great. So anyways, we waited till after the season. We're up there meeting, and the team was practicing, pretty much everybody except for him. I think maybe Donovan was training somewhere else, but pretty much the whole team. Dude, I got to see a lot of practices throughout the year. Just poke in. I wasn't like in the practice, but I got to watch. This practice was maybe more intense. This is 2 weeks after winning a championship. And, the whole entire coaching staff, Coach Hurley is out there, and he is ripping these guys up and down the court, including Caravan, who at the time we wanted to come back, right? And that's the kind of level that he holds this program to. There are no off days. There is no off season. And it's why I expect us to take a step forward, which sounds insane to say. But I expect us to be even better next year than we were this year. I actually think that's impossible. But like when I see the way that he doesn't sleep, he doesn't rest, he pushes and pushes and pushes, he probably expects the same thing.
That's why when people say to me, Mark, you're crazy, not everyone's going to think that UConn should be preseason number 1. And I know it doesn't matter. That's not the point. The point is they've built something here the same way that Alabama built a football program or Georgia has built a football program now that guarantee because I look at Alex Caravan as like getting your quarterback back from like the NFL draft. So the fact that we have our starting quarterback now on a national championship quality team, how you can't rank UConn number 1 to start the season with a top 10 recruiting class and retaining their entire team from last year outside of the people that went pro is mind-boggling, because the gap between our coaching staff and everyone else's coaching staff is a chasm that is so big that that's what fires me up. It's like people are like, well, dude, relax. Nothing's happened yet. Well, we're not in the season. I have nothing else to compare it to. We just won a national championship. Like this team should be preseason number 1. They should be going into it with those expectations. And I don't see it any other way. I can't see how you can. I know we don't.
We want to be the underdog, not because we deserve it. We all want it as fans. We want the respect, but ultimately, Coach Hurley, I think secretly he likes the fuel.
I know.
He does.
I totally get it. I totally understand. He's that, like I've said it, he's that Jocko Willink. Oh, they're not going to rank you preseason number 1. Good. Yeah, good. I get all that. But I also think too, it's the off season. And I want to get a little fired up, man. We should get that number 1, because I don't think it's gonna. You're not gonna go undefeated, but I want the respect of a team that just won back-to-back national championships.
Yeah, I cannot wait for this season.
I am super excited. I'm excited to partner with you, Ryan, and I'm looking forward to a really great partnership, not only with our businesses but also UConn basketball and UConn athletics as a whole, man. Hey, this coming up, man. Let's get another title in baseball. I love it. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto, for Ryan Gresh of the Feel Good Lab, asking you, stay locked in, stay connected, make sure your toughness meter is always rising, and as always, go Huskies.